Hi everyone, welcome back to the Raised Bed Garden series. Today is the day I've been waiting for. We've been working hard on our raised bed, filling it with soil, making those trellises. Today's the day we're going to plant our kitchen garden grocery store in our raised bed garden. Such an exciting day. I cannot wait to see this all filled with fresh, delicious vegetables. So a lot of you have been growing on the Raised Bed Garden series with us, and I know a lot of you have made this quick and simple raised bed, filled it with soil, made the trellises. So I want to hear all about it in the comments below. So let's jump into the video. Now today I'm going to plant what's called a kitchen garden. Now typically a kitchen garden is located close to your house for easy access when you're cooking and contains some basic vegetables that you're going to harvest and eat on a daily basis. So this layout is actually found in my book, The First Time Gardener, Raised Bed Gardening, and I'm going to plant a lot of warm weather vegetables because we're approaching summertime, but you can just as easily do this in the fall with cool weather vegetables. So how I'm going to lay this out is with a little method called thrillers, fillers, and spillers. Now the thrillers are kind of the star attraction of the show here. They're tall, vining vegetables that are really going to make a big pop and a visual appeal to the garden. The spillers are going to spill over the edge, help you manage the space in your garden, really pack everything in that you can. And then the middle, we're going to fill with, guess what? You're right, the fillers. So let's get started. The first thing I want to plant is a tomato. Now, when you're orienting your garden with your trellises here, you want to make sure that you put your trellises so they don't shade out other plants as much as possible. So here we've got my tomato cage in the back of the garden bed. The southern sun, or the sun, will come this way and spill here onto the tomato plant. And I have kind of moved the trellises around from last week's video again so they didn't shade each other out. This A-frame trellis here, I kind of staggered a little bit to fit the space so the vegetables aren't shading each other out. So the star of the show in the back here is going to be the tomato. So I am going to remove the tomato cage so we can easily get the tomato planted. So I'm just going to pull it out and then we'll put it back in after we plant our tomato. First, what I'm going to do is dig a nice deep hole for my tomato, as tomatoes like to be planted really deep. And by the way, if you made any of the DIY trellises from last week's video, please let me know. I'd love to hear about it. They're so much fun, they're quick and simple, and you can save a ton of money by making your own trellises. Most of the plants we're putting in today, I started from seed from my Raised Bed Garden kitchen seed collection. A nice deep hole here. The soil that we made on a video a few weeks ago is nice and loose and fluffy. And that's the beauty of growing in raised beds, is you can fill it with nutrient-dense soil and your vegetables will thrive. When we filled the bed with soil, we amended it with some worm castings and some compost, but I am going to add a handful of granular fertilizer to the planting hole. Doesn't really matter which brand. Just pick up a nice balanced fertilizer at your garden center, and that way your tomato roots have the nutrients they need to really get off to a great start. Today I'm going to plant one of my very favorite tomatoes. This is the Golden Jubilee from my Raised Bed Kitchen Garden seed collection. This was started from seed indoors about 8 weeks or so ago. It's a beautiful orange slicing tomato. It's an indeterminate variety, which basically means this plant is going to grow here until it gets too cold for it in the fall and produce the most delicious orange tomatoes you've ever seen. So I'm planting it deep in the hole because tomato stems have little teeny tiny hairs, and wherever those hairs touch the soil, they send out roots, so your tomato plant will be nice and sturdy. It'll hold up to wind and weather and all kinds of things when you plant it deep. So I'm filling it in with soil. You notice here I am planting it right next to the drip irrigation hose. I'll put a link to the video on installing drip irrigation in garden beds so you know exactly how to get that installed. Definitely well worth the time to save yourself a lot of time and a lot of water. Okay, now it's trellis time. Might look small now, but before you know it, this tomato plant is going to grow and fill this trellis up. The other thrillers I'm going to plant are on this A-frame trellis. I'm going to plant some watermelon and some cucumbers. They'll climb up the trellis, up and over the top, and I'm planting them on the far side of the garden bed here, so when they trail over, they don't spill over into this area. So sugar baby watermelon is a great thing to plant on this A-frame trellis. It's a nice compact variety, and these are actually in my watermelon seed collection. Started them from seed about 3 weeks ago. They grow so fast, but you can also direct seed them right in the garden bed. And I love the look of these plants. They're just so beautiful, and I'm just envisioning some lovely sugar baby watermelon eating on a hot summer day. So just digging my hole here, popping it in, and as it grows, it has little tendrils that will attach itself to the trellis. Next, I'm going to plant some cucumbers. Who doesn't love a fresh, delicious cucumber on a hot summer day? And these I'm going to plant from seed. They grow super easily from seed as long as you're past your last frost date, like nice warm soil temperature. You can also start them from seed indoors, but growing them from seed is just so, so easy. So I'm going to drop a seed in right next to my little drip irrigation emitter, cover it up, and then I'll plant them every 2 inches apart right here along the trellis. And we're going to give everything a nice good dose of water at the end of our planting. And these are Boston pickling cucumbers, one of my very favorite. They're great for pickling, but also great for fresh eating. And those are also in my raised bed kitchen garden seed collection. One more last set of thrillers in the back of the garden bed. You can't forget the pollinators. So here I'm just going to pop in a little A-frame type trellis, little teepee trellis actually. This I made real quick out of some old sunflower stalks and a bamboo pole, tied at the top with twine. And this is going to support some sunflowers and some zinnias. And it's going to make such a nice color splash in the garden and bring the pollinators in like crazy to pollinate my vegetables. I can't wait. So here I've got some California giant zinnias. Zinnias are such an amazing summer flower to grow, full of color. The bees and the butterflies absolutely love them. And these grow fast. They were started from seed indoors about a month ago or so too. So I'm going to squeeze the bottom to kind of get it out. My little sunflower trellis will support the zinnias. Now I gotta grab a sunflower. I planted some sunflower seeds over here in Little Shorty, my brand new 3-foot raised bed a couple of weeks ago. And I just popped some seeds in here just to get them going. Then I decided this is gonna be way too small of a spot for it. So I'm gonna grab this sunflower out of here and transplant it over into my new raised bed. This is the gray striped sunflower. These can get 8 to 10 feet. They're absolutely beautiful. And I cannot wait to see it towering over my plants here in our new raised bed. I absolutely love sunflowers. Just digging a hole here, popping it in. And that's pretty much how we're going to plant all of our plants here in our kitchen raised bed. So you guys are getting it down. Now for the fillers that are going to fill in the middle of the garden bed, we're going to pop in some peppers. Two of my very favorites, the California Wonder, a beautiful thick-walled red pepper, so delicious on the grill. And when you have a sweet pepper, of course, you got to have a hot pepper. So we're going to pop in a jalapeno here as well, so we can make some nice, fresh, tasty salsa. And peppers like to be planted fairly close together. They like the leaves touching. I don't know why, but it just really works well that way. And that way, they also kind of shade out once the peppers start to grow. They shade the peppers out just a little bit to help the fruit themselves not get scalded by the hot sun. Peppers don't need to be planted deep like tomatoes, so you just plant it at soil level. Kind of backfill it a little bit. Put your tag in there, and then we'll put our jalapeno pepper in right next to it. To get them out of the little cups, just squeeze the bottom, grasp the stem in between 2 fingers, turn it upside down. Look at those roots. Good roots mean good fruit. Our peppers are about maybe 8 inches apart or so. And peppers do need a little bit of support. So what I typically use, just to keep it simple, is the small tomato cages you can pick up at the garden center. And if possible, get those cages put over your plants at the time of planting. The rest of the fillers, we're gonna do some herbs. Got two different types of basil, Italian large leaf and Thai basil. So I like to do a couple rows of beans right here in the front and some kale right behind it. So we're gonna pop in 2 different kinds of kale here. The red Russian kale and some KX kale. This is a beautiful purple kale from my kale seed collection. Now I know a lot of you have been really excited to plant your raised bed garden. So tell us all about it in the comments. It's just so much fun to be growing together and hearing all kinds of tips. And if this is your first time planting a raised bed garden, great job. It feels so good to get started. And for those of you that have been gardening for a while, I'm glad that you're hanging out too, because we can all learn from each other. So I'm going to pop out these little kale seedlings here. You can also plant kale from seed directly in your garden. It grows beautifully in the warm weather of the summer, and it also will last through the winter in many climates. It's a super, super hardy green. The KX kale is super tender, and it just looks so beautiful in salads. And if you pick it young as a baby kale, the flavor is just absolutely amazing. And kale can grow pretty large, so I'm spacing my plants probably about a foot or so apart. Now for the beans. I love growing beans in my garden because they grow so fast. These were started from seed indoors about 2 weeks ago, believe it or not. Look at the size of these. You can also put seeds right in your garden bed, so just do whatever you prefer. But all these vegetables, you definitely do not want to get planted outdoors until after your last frost date. They love the warm soil, they'll thrive in the warm temperatures. Before you know it, you're going to be harvesting yourself some nice, fresh, tasty beans. And all these plants also have been hardened off. You can go and watch our video on how to transition your seedlings to the outdoors for all the info on that, but definitely make sure you don't skip that step. And these are the Royal Burgundy bush beans. They're a beautiful purple bean, so they make quite a beautiful statement in your garden. They actually turn green when they're cooked, but they're super delicious and they're such a beautiful plant. So I always like to put just kind of a lightweight support in, so plants kind of have something to lean against. And I really like these cute little bamboo kind of hoops that you can pick up very inexpensively at most garden centers. Or if you have some extra branches in your yard that are kind of bendable, that would be a really good option too. But I think these look really pretty. Our other fillers here are going to be some herbs. You can't beat fresh herbs. Got to have those herbs in your kitchen garden. I mean, what is cooking without fresh herbs? So much flavor to your food. So here I'm going to add a Thai basil plant. I love Thai basil. If you've never grown it before, it's kind of a, I want to say like a black licorice kind of flavor. Super delicious, and the plants are gorgeous. They produce these beautiful purple flowers that the bees absolutely love. Got to have my Italian large leaf basil, kind of your classic basil that you can pop in your pizzas. Another really great herb to have in your kitchen garden grocery store are chives. You can plant chives from seed right in the garden bed. This is actually a clump I grabbed from another area of my garden that need dividing. It's probably the herb I use the most in the kitchen. So here, this nice little clump, all you have to do is kind of break it apart a little bit. There's a ton of chives in here, and we're just going to kind of edge our garden bed with these. Dig a little hole, put the clump in. I like to plant when I can right next to the drip emitter. Now, one of my favorites is doing spillers. These are so pretty. They're plants that kind of spill over the edge, give a really nice dimension to your garden, and also save space. So for this, I'm gonna do some green scallop squash. And again, these are from my raised bed garden kitchen seed collection. And you can start them from seed indoors, as I did here just a couple of weeks ago. And they're a smaller variety of squash, so they're gonna spill beautifully over the garden bed here. So I'm going to plant one in each corner, and there's lots of different things you can plant for spillers. I think strawberries would be really nice, some flowers, even different kinds of herbs. Nasturtiums would be beautiful spilling over the side. Now I do want to maximize every square inch of planting space here so I get the most vegetables possible out of my kitchen garden. So what I'm going to do is utilize the soil here underneath the A-frame to plant some vegetables that really do better when they're a little bit more shaded in the heat of the summer, and that would be some greens. So I'm going to plant some heat tolerant varieties, but they still don't like temperatures over 80 or 85 degrees or so. So they'll definitely benefit here from the shade of the cucumbers and the watermelon. And this is such a gorgeous variety of lettuce. It's called Bronze Mignonette. It's kind of a purple tinged lettuce. So ruffly and so beautiful in salads. And I'm just gonna plant it from seed here, just sprinkling the seeds right next to that drip irrigation hose. In the middle here, I'm gonna plant some of the Paris Island romaine lettuce. This is from my lettuce seed collection. And this definitely is a good heat tolerant variety. It's nice bright green. It's a beautiful romaine that'll be really nice here in the middle. Now the cool thing about lettuce is you don't have to cover it up with soil. It needs light to germinate. You can cover it lightly if you want to kind of protect it from the birds, but just press it down. You're good to go. Now we definitely need to water everything down, give it a nice drink to get all the plants off to a good start. And the HoseLink retractable reel makes it so easy and fun. So we're just going to fill our watering cans with water, and we're going to add in some liquid fertilizer in just a moment so we can feed our plants not only with the long-term granular fertilizer, which is a slow release, but a quick release, which the nutrients will be immediately available to the plants. Feeding your plants right when you get them planted is always a great idea so they really start growing fast right off the bat. And I'm using my go-tos here. This is fish fertilizer, readily available at most garden centers. It's very, very inexpensive. Does have a little bit of an odor, but you know what, you get used to it. It's higher in nitrogen, so it helps your plants get off to that really good green leafy growth start that they love. And then I'm using the Vermistera Vitality. Now I've been using this on all of my seedlings this year. This is liquid worm castings in a bottle basically. So 4 or 5 squirts should do it. But it has a natural growth hormone, which man, the root development on my seedlings was incredible with that. And I know it's going to do really well for my kitchen garden here too. So I'm just really going to drench the soil around the base of each plant. Let it soak in, then kind of drench it again. That way the plants get a nice deep watering. So I'm just going to go around the garden bed and do this to all the plants here. The garden bed is looking absolutely beautiful. I'm so excited about it. And the last step, and a very important one, is to mulch. Now, mulch is so important, especially here in drought-ridden California. And basically what mulch is just a layer of organic material that you put over the garden bed to really help with water evaporation. Here I'm using shredded leaves. Put a couple inches over the soil to keep the top of the soil nice and moist. Don't have to water as much. You can also use shredded straw or pine needles. I like leaves because they're free. So if you have access to that, it's a great way to go. What happens over time is the shredded leaves kind of break down, add organic matter to the soil, and it really brings the worms in too. Now here where I planted seeds, I'm going to spread the leaves a little bit lighter. That way the seeds don't have any problem germinating and breaking through the soil. And if you can shred your leaves up, that's that much better. That way they don't get matted up over your garden bed. And when you do water, the water can get through. It's so rewarding to see this whole project come together, from building the beds, filling it with soil, building the trellises, and today getting our kitchen garden grocery store planted. Well, definitely let me know down below if you've been following along in the Raised Bed Garden series, what type of bed you've built, trellises, soil, and what you're planting right along with us. I want to tell you guys, you can do it, and really commend you for jumping in and growing your raised bed garden with us. Well, if you haven't yet started, it's definitely not too late. Grab a copy of my new book, The First Time Gardener, Raised Bed Gardening. You'll definitely want the Raised Bed Kitchen Garden Seed Collection. And don't forget, Mother's Day is next Sunday, May 8th, so I'm having a special sale so you can get a gift for Mom. Use the code MOM to get 25% off. And thanks so much for gardening with us. We'll see you on the next video.